friends, welcome back. I've got such a fun project to show you today. We are going to make this adorable Christmas tree wall hanging using English paper piecing, and I'm going to show you how to make the shapes, how to put this all together, and I'm even going to show you how to attach the binding in the easiest method I've ever used for attaching binding. Join me, let's watch this video and make this really cute wall hanging for the holidays. You can make your hexies any way you want to, but I'm going to use these iron-on water-soluble templates that I absolutely love. So first I lay them out on the back of my fabric. You just want to make sure you leave at least a half an inch in between each hexie because you want a quarter of an inch to go around each one. So lay them down and then iron them in place. And then you simply just need to cut them apart. You want to make sure you leave, like I mentioned, a quarter of an inch around the edges of these because you need that to fold over to the inside so that you don't have any raw edges. So I just use a ruler, I cut down the middle of the fabric, and then I'll just cut them all apart. I like to start with my rotary cutter to cut them all apart, but then I will grab my scissors to trim a little bit closer around the entire outside edge. So remember, leave that quarter of an inch of fabric around the outside edge. Then what we're going to do is grab our glue stick and we're just going to simply add glue around the outside edges, and I'm adding it right to this paper. You do not remove these papers. They work different than most. So you add the glue and then you simply use that edge of the template as a guide and you fold over your edges so that they stick down to the glue. So I like to go every other edge, and then it keeps my corners nice and neat, but you just want to press them down, and you guys, that's it. That's all you do to make these hexies. There's no hand sewing involved. I'm going to be here a while because I need 60 of these for my project. All right, now I use fusible foam here, and I've got my fabric on the foam, and I'm going to mark the center. And I just like to draw a line right down the middle so it helps to keep my tree nice and straight. I'm using a heat erase marking pen. You can use whatever type of fabric marking pen that you like. Next up is laying out the tree. So just start wherever you want. I use that middle line as a guide, and if you bought the pattern, you can use that as a guide to see exactly how I laid this all out. But I am just taking my time placing the colors. I'm just laying them on there at this point. I'm not gluing them. They're not attached in any way, but I'm just laying them down to get the layout that I want, to have the colors where I want them. This way I can kind of move things around as I go. So continue to play with your pieces until you're happy with your layout. Keep in mind, you can do other shapes here if you want to. You could do a really cute candy cane or a wreath, whatever you want to make. I decided it was fun to do a tree. Once you're happy with your layout, grab your glue. You can use a glue stick. I like to use my Roxanne glue-based basting glue, and then I heat set them with my iron, which dries the glue so it will not gum up your needle, and it holds everything in place until it is time to sew all of these down. This part is a little bit tedious, so maybe turn on your favorite audiobook, your show, whatever it is you want to listen to, and get all of these glued down in place. Once we've got everything glued and pressed, then it's time to decide on your quilting pattern. Now, I am going to do a diagonal from corner to corner on both sides. And then I'm also going to do some stitching from top to bottom as well when I'm all done. This will make sure that all my hexies are stitched into place really well and that it just looks really cute and quilted throughout the entire project. So I'm drawing with an erasable marking pen, and I'm just drawing my two starting lines. And then I'm going to go to my sewing machine here, and I'm just going to sew using my walking foot, and I'm stitching right down along those lines. And then I will use my guide to follow the lines for the rest of the pattern. So you don't need to draw all those lines out if you have a guide for your sewing machine. So now we just keep quilting, and I am quilting about half an inch apart. So my lines are pretty close together, but I wanted to make sure to get enough pattern throughout each of the English paper pieces. Like I wanted to have enough stitching on all the sides of them. So you can space your lines as you can do it whatever way you want. You don't even have to do straight line quilting like this. You could do a design. The biggest thing is you want to make sure your hexies are all sewn into place, because that glue that we used is just a temporary glue based. It's not a permanent. So stitch away, have fun, get creative, do whatever you want to do here. There's no right or wrong. I think earlier I may have said I was going top to bottom, but I did go side to side with the third line that I quilted in, and I just went from the bottom I went from the bottom to the top. You can see what I'm doing here. Like I went sewed across, but all the way up from top to bottom. That was what I meant. I hope you understand that. But anyway, like I said, there's no rules to the quilting. You can do whatever you want, but you can see the design that is popping and how it looks on each of the hexes as well. I just thought this looked so fun, and that foam on the backside really makes this pop. All right, next we are getting ready to attach our binding. So I've got my binding strips all cut and I'm going to sew them together on the diagonal here because I am using a striped binding. So I'm going to sew the pieces together and then bring it over to my ironing board. I'm going to fold it in half, press it all down to make the binding. All the dimensions that you need for the width and the length and all that are right in the pattern for you. So you want to fold your binding, you want to fold your seams down and press them. And then you want to fold your binding in half like this and then give it a good press. Now, you can use your favorite binding method, whatever that may be, but I'm going to show you the way I like to attach binding, and this was the game changer for me. I start by creating a binding pocket. So you can see I have the binding open and I'm stitching 2 to 3 inches down along the edge. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold that pocket closed and then I'm going to start stitching on both layers where I left off. So the top 2 inches or so of your binding pocket are still open. It's attached to the fabric, but that top layer is not sewn down. And that's important. It will get sewn down when you're all done. So then go ahead and stitch along the edge and then you're going to stitch right off that corner. That helps give you a guideline for when you want to miter here. So once you've stitched off the corner, it gives you a nice line so you can fold it back on the diagonal and then you fold it back towards your project along that next edge. And we're going to turn and then we're going to simply continue stitching all the way down until we get to that next corner. And we repeat that at all 4 corners. So you get that nice clean miter with that straight edge. And then you just stitch all the way around. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to meet you back at that pocket. And I'm going to show you how to finish that up so you don't have any raw edges and everything gets tucked in nice and neat. All right, we're back at the pocket. So what you're going to do after you finish mitering that last corner, like I'm doing right here. So now we've got some excess here. So cut it off. You want about an inch or so to tuck into the pocket and then sew down to where you started stitching on the outside. Now everything is stitched into place. This next step is another game changer for binding. Now, I take it to the ironing board and I press my binding out all around all 4 edges. Don't worry too much about the corners. Those will fold down nicely on their own. Then you're going to flip it over and then we're going to grab that glue base again. Don't be afraid of the glue. And guys, it doesn't gum up your needle. I've never ever had an issue doing this. So you put a little dab of glue along your edge and then you use your iron and you press your binding down along that edge of the glue. The heat from the iron dries the glue. So by the time you get around to stitching, there's no wet glue. It doesn't do anything to your machine. What it does do is make sure you don't have to use pins or clips. It holds your binding in place and you get a much nicer, neater finish when you're all done. Now just simply head back to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch in the ditch, which means you're going to stitch where the binding is attached to the front side and you're stitching right in between those two little spots. You won't even see your stitches on the front, but on the back side, it is stitching that binding down because that glue is just temporary. So this is stitching it down in place and that's it. You stitch all the way around and you're done. Now, if you want to make this a wall hanger, you could simply add some ribbon, whatever you want to do to hang it up on your wall. Well, you guys, here we have it. And I do want to show you something really, really quick. So on the back, because I used a fusible foam, I didn't put anything on the back because it's a wall hanging, or you can hang it on your front door, whatever, wherever you want to hang it up. But this foam is so nice. It looks like a really nice and it feels like a soft, almost flannel. So I didn't feel like I needed to add anything to the back, not even this embroidery thread that somehow got attached. finished. But no, I didn't add anything to the back of mine. You certainly could if you want to, but I didn't feel like it was necessary. Why put some pretty fabric on the back when it's really just white and it looks really cute and quilted anyway. And then what you're going to want to do to hang this up is attach some sort of ribbon or a dowel rod or something so that you can hang it on your door, on your wall, whatever it might be. But thank you guys so much for being here and watching our videos this holiday season. If you want a more in-depth tutorial on the binding, I've got a video for you right here.